All right, the MCU is finally back after a year and a half long wait, more or less. We have finally arrived at the MCU Phase 4 with WandaVision, the first Disney Plus original from the Marvel Universe, and it's quite a doozy. So we're gonna talk about that. No nonsense. What we like, what we don't like, what we think could happen as well in the future. So yeah, this will be as most of our reviews are. We're gonna start with some non-spoiler stuff. Not that there's a ton to spoil in this. I think most of the stuff from these episodes were in the trailers, but still, we're gonna start with some non-spoilers, and we're gonna go a little bit more specific into things in the spoiler review, and then after that, we'll probably do some speculation about where things could potentially be going. So, WandaVision, Sebastian, we're here.
Yes, we are.
This show is really strange. I think that's fair to say. What did you think about the first two episodes here?
I thought they actually really good. I know you kind of were like the sitcom is kind of like okay in some parts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed all of the sitcom. I thought it was actually really good.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, fair enough. And we were talking a little bit right before we started recording. I certainly did not dislike it. I am just a little bit hesitant to fully embrace it right off the bat because I just don't really know where it's going. It's not that I think the sitcom was bad. I think just maybe they kind of stretched out this particular iteration of the sitcom a little bit too far, maybe. I think they could have shaved off a little bit of that. Because by the second episode, I kind of just I was getting a little bit like, okay, where is this going? Let's like kind of pick things up and move the story forward a little bit here. But I certainly I don't think it was bad. I think it's a fairly solid start, and I am very excited certainly for where things are gonna go in the future.
No, yeah, I think the first episode was more about to introduce the characters rather than to further the story.
Yeah.
And the second episode itself was definitely to further the story and to figure out where we're going with this.
See, the second episode is actually where I felt it dragged. I didn't have too many issues with the first. I really quite enjoyed the first one and how it kind of set everything up, and how it kind of developed things. My kind of thing was, I think the second episode didn't do anything that the first episode hadn't already done. You know what I'm saying?
All right.
They do more of it, but they don't necessarily add anything on top of it. But yeah, so what about this are you liking so far?
I don't know. I just found it like really funny, just the back and forth between like every single character between Wanda and freaking the neighbor lady Agnes, I believe her name was. Agnes. I thought they were just like they just I don't know. I just liked the back and forth banter between all the characters, really.
Yeah,
at least between Wanda and her characters, not between
sure.
Vision and some of the men. It's it's kind of just there. Okay. It was more about Wanda.
See, I think I liked most all of the interactions. I think there's a scene pretty early on where Vision is at his job, and I quite liked that one. I thought that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I think the characters are all really solid. I think we have to probably give props to Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany here, because they're doing a fantastic job. I think they're really what's selling this to me and kind of keeping it from being. I think they're keeping me feeling more positive about it because their performances were so good. Like, I really, really buy that they were that they're in this kind of sitcom premise. And I guess they filmed at least parts of the first couple episodes in front of a live studio audience. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not, actually.
Yeah, so I think some of that laugh track is real, like from real people there. Which is cool, and I think it's it adds to some of the authenticity.
But definitely.
There are no breaks when it comes to the sitcom stuff. Literally, the first shot is they are pulling up while like a theme song plays for the sitcom.
Yep.
And there's like no bridge. It's just right into it. So how do you feel about that and the kind of fact that we didn't have any transition? We're straight into this world.
I was wondering how they were gonna like start it off, and I feel like them going to just straight into the sitcom adds to the mystery of trying to figure out what exactly is going on.
I agree. I think you get dropped in there and you're like, holy shit, this is really disorienting. Like, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening? But I think that is the intended effect. And I think it also helps us kind of feel what Wanda and Vision and maybe everybody are potentially feeling in the show. It's kind of hard to tell, like, who is behind this. It's I'm still having a hard time kind of grasping who is aware what's happening and who is not and what's real. And there's a lot of stuff that I'm kind of trying to wrap my mind around. But I think dropping us in is probably the right way to do it. So yeah, speaking of characters, we have obviously we have Wanda and Vision, who are in very different places when we last saw them. Vision just having gotten the Mind Stone ripped out of his head, and
Yep.
Wanda thrashing Thanos and grieving at her friend's funeral. But along with her, there are some other characters. I'm not going to say all of them that show up in trailers because I mean they have released this information, but in case you're just completely going in fresh, I'll keep this part spoiler free. But of the people who directly show up in the episode, we have Agnes as Sebastian mentioned. Who what do you think about her? I think she's gonna probably play a big part in the season going forward based on the trailers. But how do you like
I
her?
hope so.
Yeah, I mean she's
I
in the
really hope.
trailers quite a bit. She
She
pops up
is.
quite a lot. So I think yeah, but yeah. So good vibes from her.
Yes.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think definitely good performance. The character right now just kind of fits that like neighbor archetype. However, based on some of the glitches in the trailer, I think we're going to be seeing a lot of her, and she's probably going to play a fairly decent role here. And then as for there's another character that shows up who will be playing a big role going forward. I don't remember what they call her in the episode though, because it's not her actual name, and I don't want to say her actual name until spoilers. But do you know who I'm talking about?
Okay. Yep. It was her. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't really know how to talk around her. So maybe we should just leave her for spoilers, actually, because
Yeah. Okay.
I,
Yeah. Yeah.
but she's good. Okay, so where do we want to go for here?
Use of color.
I think the use of color in this is I find really interesting. I think these are probably the only two episodes that are really going to make use of it, at least in this kind of form, because these are presumably the only black and white episodes. But particularly the color red, I think, is really striking in this, and I think it leads to some really. I mean, there are some shots of that in the trailer, and there's
Yeah.
some really. I think that leads to a lot of the kind of intrigue in there. Is like, what the fuck is happening? So I find that stuff really interesting.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. Really, the only colors that were highlighted were red.
Yeah, there's a bit of
Um.
yellow, I think, in one of them in the helicopter,
In
but
one of them, I think, yeah, I was gonna say a bit of yellow, but I think that was just to give the whole thing like color itself.
yeah, I mean, it would be weird to just see a straight up just block of red with
Yeah.
the object that was.
No, exactly. So that's why I just think they just rather than just do red, rather just give it full color, that other thing red or
Hmm.
whatever.
So, what
Um.
do you think that stuff from the? I mean, presumably, to anybody who has watched the trailers and who kind of knows the premise of the show, like this is clearly not the real world.
Yep.
Do you think that that's maybe that seems to be maybe like the real world kind of bleeding into whatever this is? Is that kind of what your impression as well?
I don't know. I don't know if it's just Wanda's mind that is giving it color, like it's a significant object
Hmm.
that's giving it color, or if it's from the real world. I don't know yet.
Yeah, because the actual objects that get highlighted are pretty incongruous. Besides for one thing, which we'll probably talk about in spoilers. But it's like a light, a toy, something else that I don't want to talk about right now because that could maybe fall more into spoilers. But like the stuff that they choose to highlight with the red feels kind of like strange. Like they feel completely kind of disconnected a lot of times. So I'm not
Yeah.
really sure about that either. But I think it's certainly interesting to theorize. I just will have to see. I mean, actually, yeah, no, I'll not say any more about that. You got anything else on that before switch
No.
topics here? Okay.
No, no,
Do we want
no.
to talk about the kind of the sitcom antics and the stuff that that kind of goes on in this wacky world?
All right,
Do you
all right.
have a favorite little fun sitcom like element scene thing?
I think the committee meeting, not. I guess that's not really sitcom-y, but like,
Yeah, okay.
let me think.
See, I think I'm probably gonna go with the Magic Show. I think that feels very like
Mm-hmm.
hijinks sitcom. Woohoo!
Okay, yeah.
Lots of wacky stuff going on, and I think it's pretty fun. They do some pretty fun stuff in there, but it does leave me with some questions. But that's also probably more for spoilers. I don't know. I think a lot of the comedy works here for the most part, though, which I wasn't expecting because I don't usually watch sitcoms from the 60s. That's
Yeah,
not
me
really
neither.
my thing.
Yeah,
But
me
I
neither.
think by putting these characters that we know into that situation, I think it does create some fun elements. I like Vision and his boss chatting and stuff. I think some of the stuff at the dinner party is quite fun. I don't know. Are you in the same boat?
Yes. No, I definitely am. I think that just the committee meeting got me because it felt more real than everything else that went on.
Okay. Real as in significant or real as in the real world?
As
Or
in, I
both?
feel like it could happen in the real world. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. See, I think that's kind of why I shied away from that one maybe a little bit more, is because
Mm.
sitcoms, at least in my kind of the ones that I view, are like super over exaggerations of like kind of real world events, so like a dinner party or the Magic Show. I mean, my favorite sitcom and my favorite show is Community, which is just the most over exaggerated
Yeah.
kind of comedy stuff that there really is. So I think I kind of gravitated more to that wacky stuff because of that.
Okay. No. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Well, this one was like exaggerating how like a powerful woman figure can be if everybody else is
Mm.
like afraid of her. You know.
Yeah, there's a very like controlling type A kind of
Yeah.
situation there.
And I feel like
Yeah,
it does kind of exaggerate on that a bit.
okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, she's not a pleasant person, that
And
character
I
that you
mean,
are
I
referring
feel
to.
like that also has to play with the part that this kind of seems like it's taking place like a little bit in the past, like you said, 60s and stuff.
Yeah, there is some definitely some period stuff in there. Like there are some things in there that are very outdated by modern standards. Yeah, no, I see what you're saying there. We probably don't have too much more to talk about in non-spoilers, I don't think. We can kind of touch briefly on some of this other stuff. Like, if you've watched the trailer, you can kind of very clearly see that the walls of reality are kind of breaking down, and that is probably, I think, for me at least, the most engaging part of the show so far. Because I think it kind of like makes it so that this show seems like a horror show that's kind of masquerading as a comedy, and I think that's really cool. And those scenes where it kind of goes creepy and you kind of see that some of that stuff kind of what is real and the perception of everything kind of shifting. I think that stuff is really engaging.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I can agree with you, yeah. But I'm trying to think like if the color has anything to do with the breaking down of reality.
I think it has to, right? I mean, otherwise it'd be a kind of strange thing to just highlight and throw in every now and again, unless it
Mm-hmm.
has a really clear purpose.
See, but at the same time, I feel like Wanda herself kind of like initiates some of the breakdowns.
Yeah, right. No, I agree, but I think some of that also maybe comes from the fact that she becomes aware maybe of some of this stuff through the color. I don't know. I'm not
Okay,
entirely sure, and that's I.
okay.
There's one scene in particular where I think maybe that might be kind of the case where she was close to figuring something out, and then it kind of pulls back a little bit.
Gotcha. All right, all right.
But that's I'll probably go into that a little bit more in spoilers.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to talk about the intros really quickly? I know you wrote that down.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I can't remember if they were the same intros now all of a sudden.
They were not.
Okay. I was talking about like the theme song itself.
Hmm. I don't think they had one.
In the first one?
Oh well, no, they did. The theme songs were definitely different both times. I think the second time it was just them saying WandaVision over and over
It was. The
again.
second time was just them saying like the WandaVision.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about
The
the
first one
first
had
time.
actual. It had lyrics.
Mm,
I remember that there were definitely like actual lyrics in the first one. They're pretty fun and creative. I don't know if they're gonna serve any purpose plot wise, but I think they set the scene quite well for kind of what you're getting yourself into when you start watching it.
no, yeah. I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I wasn't expecting. I guess I should have expected it because supposed to be a sitcom, but I don't know. I just wasn't expecting a theme song.
Yeah, no, I wasn't really either.
I just
I
don't know.
expected something more in the vein of the Mandalorian, where you have a theme, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
like a title
I just don't
sequence.
know if the different intros are significant.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I feel like a lot of this. I feel like probably most of the stuff in this show is significant. It's just gonna take a while to figure out why or
Mm-hmm.
how.
Yeah.
I mean, even some of the like comedy dialogue, they like some of the dialogue they play off as like situational comedy. But when you kind of like listen to the dialogue, it's actually kind of showing you that like there's something that's kind of wrong here, like how and this was there was a clip that released about this earlier, so I feel safe talking about this, but how Wanda and Vision can't remember the date that's on their calendar. Like
Gotcha. Okay.
at first glance you're like, oh, that's a funny little sitcom element, but then you think about it and you're like, well, maybe that's probably actually just because something's really wrong here and they just can't remember what's going on. So that's kind of that's
Well, if you think about it, right? Because Vision is just a fabrication of Wanda's head.
well, we don't know that for sure. That's my theory
We
too,
can assume
but
that right now.
yeah.
I feel like until proven wrong, I'm just going to assume that he's not entirely real.
No, I definitely agree with that. But yeah, I don't know what he's being fabricated by, if it is Wanda or if it's something else.
Mm-hmm. Okay. 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 Gotcha. Yeah. And so him not remembering, I feel like, isn't the problem. It's more Wanda not remembering because
Right.
she's making all of this, assuming.
Right. If we assume that theory, which may not be correct.
Yeah.
And we'll probably talk about that more in a little bit once we get into spoilers. I think we're probably close to being done with non spoiler stuff. But yeah, no, I agree, and I think that's kind of a clever way of showing that, like, yeah, fun stuff is happening, but there's some really weird stuff going on under the surface here, and it's just under the surface. You can see it if you look a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of cool. Do you have anything else in non spoilers that you think we can talk about, or should we move on?
I think we're good. I
Oh,
think
do we
we're
want?
good.
We should probably score it now because I forgot to do that with Wonder Woman.
Oh yeah. So
Yeah, where are you feeling on this?
I'm just gonna judge both episodes as a whole rather than
Yeah,
individually.
I think that's fair.
I am giving it an 8.5.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
I for
Maybe a
when
9.
I right at oh really? Wow. Initially right after watching it, I was sitting at like a 7 or a 6.5. But
Gotcha.
having theorized some more and having kind of looked a little bit farther into this, I do think there's some really cool stuff going on that can lead to some really cool stuff in the future. And I think as a whole, I'll look back on this a lot more fondly. So I'm going to be a little bit more generous. I'm going to raise it probably to a 7.5 as my actual score.
All right. All right. All right.
And hope for the best. I mean, I do have a fair amount of confidence that they'll be able to pull this off. I'm like the biggest Marvel fanboy in existence. Our main thing on this channel is that we talked about Marvel comics from a long time ago. So obviously,
Yep.
we are very invested in this. Yeah, so I am pretty confident that they can pull this off, and I think this has the potential to be one of the best Marvel properties ever. But right now, I need to see more of it to really decide on how I feel about it as a whole.
No, fair enough. Right now it's sitting at an 8 out of 10 for IMDb and 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
All right, yeah.
So
not bad.
So it's not doing bad. It's doing pretty good actually.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, I love that it's really unique. I think it's great that Marvel is taking some chances. I mean, there's been a pretty common complaint that a lot of Marvel is kind of similar in terms of its plot structure. This is very different. Like, there is no pretenses. This is very different from the normal stuff, which I think is awesome. And I hope it does well, because then they'll, hopefully give Marvel the incentive to do more kind of weird and different stuff, which I think is always great
Yeah.
in concept, at least.